I was packing for a move when I found an old letter hidden inside my childhood desk, written in my father's handwriting, but what he confessed inside left me questioning if the man I grew with was really who I thought he was. I was packing for a move when I found an old letter hidden inside my childhood desk, written in my father's handwriting, but what he confessed inside left me questioning if the man I grew with was really who I thought he was. And somehow reading his words might become exactly like him. The letter was dated 3 years before I was born. Me dearest Margaret. It began, not my mother's name. My mother's name was Susan. Margaret was my Aunt Maggie Monsters who used to babysit me when I was little, the woman who'd been at every birthday party, every Christmas dinner sitting right across from my mother at the table. I can't stop thinking about last weekend. When Susan went to visit her parents, those 2 days we had together felt like the most honest I've ever been. I know this is wrong, but I've never felt so alive. My hands were shaking as I read on. Dad had been having an affair with my aunt for over 2 decades, right under Mom's nose, right under all our noses. But instead of being disgusted, instead of calling him a monster, I felt something else entirely, relief. Because for the first time someone in my family had done something worse than what I was about to do. I'd been planning to cheat on Sarah for 3 months, knockly. More like considering it. Justifying it. Sarah and I had been together for 4 years, engaged, perfect on paper. Kane, smart, beautiful, loved by my friends and family. But somewhere along the way, I'd started feeling like I was suffocating. Rachel from work had been flirting with me since she started 6 months ago. 23, brunette, always wearing these low tops that made it impossible not to look. She'd stay late when I stayed late, order drinks with extra cherries because she knew I thought it was cute, text me memes that had nothing to do with work. Sarah trusted me completely. Never checked my phone, never questioned why I was working late more often. She'd just smile and heat dinner when I got home, ask about my day like she genuinely cared. That trust made everything worse and easier at the same time. The day I found Dad's letter was the day I finally crossed the line. I texted Rachel, want to grab dinner. I have something, responded in 30 seconds. This finally happening. I should have put the phone down. Should have gone home and talked about whatever was making me feel so trapped. Should have been honest about my doubts, instead of looking for an escape route. Instead I drove to Rachel's apartment with Dad's letter folded in my back pocket, using his betrayal as permission for my own. Rachel answered the door in a silk robe. Nothing underneath, I could see everything through the thin fabric, and she knew it. She'd planned this moment down to lighting enough to be romantic, bright enough to see every curve. I thought we were getting dinner. I said, my voice already thick with want. Pulled me inside. I ordered Thai food. It'll be here in an hour. An hour. Plenty of time to destroy my entire. She led me to her couch, poured 2 glasses I didn't need, and curled next to me like a cat. When she asked about the crazy thing I had to tell her, I showed her the letter. Dad, she said, tracing circles on my chest. Some people are just meant for more than one person. No, it doesn't make them bad. Just honest about what they need. Her hand of lure. I didn't stop her. Sarah doesn't have to know, she whispered against my can't her. We're not leaving her. We're just taking care of. The Thai food got cold on her doorstep. Afterwards, lying in her bed while she traced patterns on my back, I felt simultaneously like I'd found something I'd been missing and like I'd just someone. Rachel was everything Sarah wasn't: spontaneous, dangerous, unpredictable. She made me feel like I was living in a movie instead of going through the motions of I'd never really chosen. When can I see again? She asked. I should have said never. Should have told men of weakness I'd regret forever. Instead I said Friday. Sarah has book club. The lies started immediately. Working late. Gym sessions that didn't exist. A phantom friend named Mike who needed help with projects that required me to be unreachable for hours at a time. Sarah bought every single one. They're so dedicated to helping people. She said one night, kissing my forehead as I fabricated another story about Mike's kitchen renovation. It's one of the things I love most about that I excused it in the bathroom. But I didn't stop. For 6 weeks I lived a double. Sarah would make me coffee in the morning, kiss me goodbye, tell me she loved me. I'd spend my lunch breaks texting Rachel, counting down hours until I could see her again. Rachel would send me photos that made it impossible to concentrate, stories about what she wanted to do to me that night, promises that she'd never make me choose between her and stability. It was incredible, desperate and hungry in a way that with Sarah had never been. Rachel bit and scratched and said things that would have made Sarah blush. She treated me like I was something she wanted to consume completely. But it was more than that. Rachel, I felt dangerous. Important, like I was someone worth risking everything for. Sarah loved me, but Rachel wanted to possess me. There's a difference. I started picking fights with Sarah over nothing. Her laugh was she chewed too quietly during movies. She asked too many questions about my day. Anything to justify what I was doing to make her the bad guy in the story I was telling. Sarah absorbed every criticism, tried to change, apologized for things that weren't problems until I made them problems. The worse I treated her, the harder she tried to fix whatever was wrong. Or having second thoughts about the wedding. She asked one night after I'd snapped at her for buying the wrong brand of, because if need more time, or if want to talk about what's bothering, I'm here. We can work through anything. Looking at her face so open, so trusting, so willing to blame herself for my distance, I almost confessed everything. Almost fell to my knees and begged for forgiveness to never see Rachel again. Instead I told her I was fine, just stressed at work. I love, she said, wrapping her arms around me. Whatever's wrong, we'll figure it out together. I held her while mentally calculating how many hours until I could see Rachel again. The end came on a Thursday. Sarah had been working late, trying to finish a project before her sister's wedding the following weekend. I thought I had the house to until at least 10 p.m. Rachel came over for the first time. We'd always met at her place before, some small boundary I'd convinced mattered. We were on the kitchen counter, Rachel's legs wrapped around the garage door. I pushed Rachel away, both of us scrambling for clothes. She grabbed at her dress. I pulled on my jeans inside out, both of us looking guilty as. Sarah walked in just as Rachel was trying to slip out the back door. Oh, Sarah stopped in the doorway holding her purse and a bag of Chinese takeout. I brought dinner, half dressed and clearly trying to escape, then at me shirtless and panicked. Not the silence stretched forever. Sarah's face went through every emotion possible: confusion, realization, rage, devastation in about 10 seconds. The takeout bag dropped from her hands, containers splitting open across the floor. How long? Her voice was barely a whisper. I could have lied. Could have said it was the first time, that it meant nothing, that Rachel had thrown herself at me and I minimized the damage. Instead, looking at Sarah's face crumbling in real time, I told her the truth. 6 weeks. She made it sound like all the air had been out of her lungs. Rachel, still trying to slip away, froze by the door. Like she was trying to make sense of a foreign language. The gym, Mike's renovations, all of I nodded out. She wasn't yelling. Somehow, both of, get out of my house. Sarah, please let me explain. Explain my head. Now she was screaming and I could see our neighbor's lights turning on. Explain how Bryn lied to my face for 6 weeks. Explain how brought into our kitchen. Explain how we're planning to marry me while someone else. Rachel finally found her voice. I should go, yeah, should have gone 6 weeks ago. Sarah's eyes were like ice when she looked at her, though when they landed back on me. 2. Get out. Don't come back. Don't call. I never want to see face again. This is my house too. No. This is the house where we were supposed to start our together. This is the her I trusted. This is the house where I planned our wedding while we're planning to her. Don't get to stay here. I grabbed my keys, my wallet, the shirt. Rachel was already in her car, probably relieved to be out of the blast zone. As I reached for the door handle, Sarah's voice stopped me. I hope she was worth it. I looked back at her one last time. She was standing in the middle of our kitchen, surrounded by spilled Chinese food, still wearing the engagement ring I'd spent 3 months saving for. Her mascara was running, her face was blotchy, and she looked like someone had just told her everyone she loved was dead. I hope got whatever we're looking for. She continued, her voice breaking. Because just lost everything else. Apologize. Beg. Promise I'd change. But what was the point? The damage was done. There was no taking back 6 weeks of betrayal, no undoing the choice I made every single day to keep lying. So I left. I spent that night in a motel room, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd gotten there. Wondering when I'd stop being someone worth loving and start to be who destroyed the people who tried. Rachel texted me around midnight. I'm sorry that happened. When ready to talk, call me. I deleted her number instead, because sitting in that motel room, smelling like another woman while the woman I was supposed to marry cried herself to sleep in our bed, I finally understood what I'd really done. I'd thrown away 4 years of love for 6 weeks of. I traded a future with someone who would have walked through fire for me for someone who wouldn't help clean the mess we'd made. I'd become my father. And just like him, I was about to learn that some betrayals don't just end relationships. They end everything. The motel room smelled like industrial disinfectant and other people's mistakes. I lay awake all night scrolling through 4 years of photos with Sarah, watching our relationship in reverse, our engagement party. Christmas morning's her 25th birthday when I surprised her with a weekend in Napa. The day we moved in together, both of us covered in paint laughing about something I couldn't remember. In every single photo she was looking at me like I hung the moon. I'd thrown it all away for what? For someone who texted me at 3 a.m. asking if I was having second thoughts about my choices. I wasn't ready to deal with Rachel. I wasn't ready to deal with anything except the growing certain I just made the biggest mistake of mine. By morning the news had spread. Sarah's sister called me at 7 a.m. Piece of were the first words out of her mouth. My sister is destroyed. She called me at 2 a.m. crying so hard she couldn't breathe. What the before I could answer she hung. Then Sarah's best friend texted. I always knew we're trash. Sarah deserves so much better. Sarah called me. How could do this to her? To us we love her like a daughter. I'm ashamed of. Be noon much from all the calls and messages. Half were people expressing their disgust. The other half were people asking if the rumors were true. Sarah had posted something on Facebook, nothing detailed. Just, the wedding is off. Please respect our privacy during this time. But people talk. And in a town the size of ours, secrets don't stay secret for long. I checked into a longer-term motel and tried to figure out what came next. I couldn't go back to the house, the locks, and left a box of my clothes on the porch. I couldn't face work yet. I couldn't face anyone. Rachel kept texting. At first it was supportive. I know this is hard but we can get through this together. Then it became nitty see. Why aren't responding are okay. I didn't force to do anything. This isn't just my fault. She was right about that last part. This was entirely my fault. 3 days after the confrontation I finally went back to work. Their office felt different. Conversation stopped when I walked into rooms. People who used to chat with me by the coffee machine suddenly found urgent reasons to be somewhere else. Rachel tried to act normal, like we were just colleagues who happened to know each other slightly better than most. But everyone could feel the tension. By lunch I got a text from my manager asking me to come to his office. Look, he said, not bothering with pleasantries. I don't know what happened between and Rachel, and I don't want to know. But it's affecting the workplace. People are uncomfortable. So here's what's going to happen when it needs to transfer to a different department. Or one of needs to find a new job. I'll transfer, I said immediately. Good, Rachel's been here longer, so that makes chair sturdy me. For what it's worth, Sarah's a good person. I met her at the company Christmas party. Whatever did she make it right. But that was the problem. There's no making this right. I found that out the hard way when I tried to call Sarah a week later. The number was disconnected. I drove by the house, our house, and saw a for sale sign on the lawn. A neighbor I'd known for 2 years saw me parked outside and came over to tell wasn't welcome in the neighborhood anymore. That girl cried for 3 straight days, she said. Wu could hear her through the walls, should be ashamed of pie walls. But shame doesn't fix anything. Sarah's sister agreed to meet me for coffee, though I could tell she regretted it the moment she saw me. She's staying with me, she said before I could even sit down. And no, I won't tell where. She doesn't want to see, she doesn't want to hear from, she wants to disappear. I just want to make feel better. There's a difference. She stirred her coffee like she was trying to it. Do you have any idea what done to her? She's questioning everything. Every moment too shared, every time said loved her, every plan made together. She doesn't trust her own judgment anymore because she trusted. The words hit like physical blows. I did love her. No, didn't. People who love someone don't do what did. They don't lie every single day. They don't bring other women into the home they share. They don't plan weddings while planning affairs. She leaned forward, her voice dropped into a whisper that somehow felt more violent than screaming. She was going to give her maid of honor speech at my wedding next weekend. She was so excited to talk about finding her soulmate, about how she knew her the one because made her feel safe. The irony was suffocating. She's not coming to the wedding now, Sarah's sister continued. She can't face the questions, the pity, the way people will look at her. My wedding is in 3 days, and my sister, my best friend, won't be there because of what did to her. I wanted to sink through the floor. She's seeing a therapist, she added. Because she thinks there's something wrong with her. She thinks she wasn't enough, wasn't interesting enough, wasn't enough. She's blaming herself for choices. That's not. I never wanted her to think. That just randomly decided to destroy and tire for fun. That accidentally fell into bed with someone else for 6 weeks. She's trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense, and the only way she can do that is by deciding she failed somehow. I left that coffee shop had been peeled off, but it got worse. 2 weeks later, I ran to Sarah's mom at the grocery store. I tried to avoid her but she spotted me in the produce section. I hope we're happy, she said, loud enough for other shoppers to turn and stare. I hope whatever got was worth breaking my daughter's heart. Mrs. Chen, please. Don't, she held to help plan that wedding. I watched my daughter light every time she talked about marrying. I listened to her worry about whether her dress was pretty enough, whether when saw her walk down the aisle, whether she'd be a good wife. Other people were definitely listening now. A small crowd had gathered, pretending to examine vegetables while obviously eavesdropping. She called off the wedding 3 weeks before the date, Mrs. Chen continued. Do know how much money that cost? Do know how embarrassing it was to call everyone and explain that their groom couldn't keep his pants on? I'll pay back. With what money? Think this is about money. Her voice rose. My daughter hasn't eaten a full meal in 3 weeks. She's lost 15 pounds. She's crying. She flinches when men talk to her. Broke something in her that might never heal. A woman I didn't recognize stepped forward. Should be ashamed of, she said to me. Then to Mrs. Chen, honey, he's not worth energy. That's when I realized I was going to be the villain in this story forever. In a small town, everyone would know what I did. Every time someone saw me, they'd think that's the guy who'd cheat or check 3 weeks before their wedding. I was radioactive. My friends started distancing themselves. Guys I'd known for years suddenly became unavailable for drinks, busy with other plans, slow to respond to texts. The few who did talk to me made it clear thought I was in. Sarah's a catch. Dude, my college roommate told me during what turned out to be our last conversation. What the word thinking, think? That was the problem. My parents invited me to dinner a month after everything imploded. I thought maybe they wanted to offer support, help me figure out how to rebuild my. Instead, they ambushed me. We've been talking, my mother said as soon as I sat down. And we think need professional help. This isn't normal behavior. Normal people don't throw away 4 years in a woman like Sarah for some fling. It wasn't a fling. What was it then? My father asked. His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. Because from where we sit looks like destroyed 4. The hypocrisy was staggering. This from the man who'd been screwing his wife's sister for decades. That's rich coming from, I said before I could stop. The silence was deafening. What's that supposed to mean? My mother asked. I pulled out Dad's letter. I'd been carrying it like evidence of my own corruption. It means Dad's been cheating on with Aunt Maggie for 20 years. My mother read the letter twice. Her face went white, then red, then white again. Where did find this? There are probably more. She looked at my father like she was seeing him for the first time. Is this true? The denial died on his lips when he saw her expression. Susan, it was a long time ago. Is it? Tree nodded. My mother folded the letter carefully and placed it on the table between us. When she looked, there were no tears, no hysteria. Just a cold clarity that was somehow more terrifying than anger. Get out, she said to both of us. Both of her both liars. And I'm done with liars. Mom. Used father's mistakes to justify own. Found out he was a cheater and that gave permission to be one too. Her both weak selfish men who the woman who loved. She stood from the table. I want both out of my house, Susan, please. 20 years, Robert. 20 years of family dinners with her. 20 years of me wondering why I seemed distant. 20 years of sister-in-law sitting at my table, eating my food, lying to my face. She laughed, but there's no humor in it. And, she said to me, or even worse, at least father kept his affair secret. Paraded years around until got caught. We left. My father and I, 2 generations of cheaters, standing in the driveway of the house I grew in, both of us suddenly homeless. This is fault, he said as we got to our cars. We've been lying to Mom for 2 decades. That letter was private. Had no right. I had no right. I laughed and it came out bitter and broken. I found out my dad's a cheater just like me. Except I'm not like, I'm worse. Because at least felt guilty now without another word. So did I, but I had nowhere to go. The motel had become my permanent address. My job was a daily exercise in humiliation. My family was in pieces. My friends were gone. The woman I'd loved was destroyed. And the woman I thought I wanted had stopped responding to my calls the moment she realized I wasn't leaving my ex for her. I was completely alone. That night lying in bed at the Sunset Motor Lodge, I understood something that hadn't occurred to me before. There are some mistakes don't recover from. Some choices that permanently change who are in the world. I wasn't just someone who had cheated, I was a cheater. And everyone I'd ever cared about knew it. 6 months after I lost everything, saw her at the grocery store. I was in the cereal aisle, debating between generic brands because my finances were, when I heard her laugh. That same bright, genuine laugh that used to make my chest tight with love and had somehow started annoying me before I blew R. Now it made me feel like I was drowning. She was with someone. A tall guy with kind eyes and an easy smile, pushing the cart while she pointed at different items and told him stories that made him chuckle. He looked at her the way I used to look at her. The way I should have kept looking at her. She looked healthy, happy even. She'd her hair short, something she'd always wanted to do but never had because I said I preferred it long. She was wearing a sundress I'd never seen before, bright yellow with tiny flowers. The kind of dress she would have asked my opinion about before buying. She didn't need my opinion anymore. I tried to back away before she saw me. The universe doesn't give breaks when we're already down. She turned toward my easel, probably looking for something, and our eyes met. For a second, neither of us moved. The guy she was, I could see him in my peripheral vision, asking if everything was okay. Sarah's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, recognition, something that might have been pain, and finally, complete blankness. I'm fine, she told the guy without taking her eyes off me. Just saw someone I used to know. 4 years together. A shared mortgage, wedding plans, arguments about whose turn it was to take out the trash. Lazy Sunday mornings and inside jokes and 1,000 small moments that had built into a. Reduced to someone she used to know. She turned away and continued shopping like I wasn't there. I left my half-full cart and went home to my studio apartment above a Chinese restaurant. The smell of grease and MSG had become the background scent of my. That night, I did something I'd been avoiding for months. I looked her on social media. She'd blocked me on everything, but her sister's Instagram was public. I found photos from a birthday party Sarah had thrown 2 months earlier. She was surrounded by friends laughing, blowing out candles on a homemade cake. The guy from the grocery store was in several pictures, his arm around her shoulders, both of them looking comfortable together, natural. Right? The comments were full saying how happy she looked, how she deserved all the joy in the world, how she was glowing. Her sister had captioned one photo, so proud of how strong and beautiful are. We're thriving, sis. Thriving, without me, she was thriving. I'd spent 6 months telling that Sarah was probably devastated, that she was struggling as much as I was, that maybe she missed me despite everything. I'd been holding on to some pathetic fantasy that she'd reach out eventually, that we might be able to talk, that I could at least apologize properly. But she'd moved on. Not just moved on, she'd improved. She'd taken the wreckage of what I'd done and built something better from the pieces. Meanwhile, I was living like a college student at 31, eating ramen for dinner and watching Netflix alone every night. I'd been demoted at work after my transfer, partly as punishment and partly because I couldn't focus on anything long enough to be effective. I was making less money living and had exactly 0 friends left. My dating was non-existent. The few times I tried to meet someone, it had gone badly. Either they'd heard about what I did to Sarah, small town, long memories, or they'd figured out pretty quickly that I was damaged goods. There's something about a man who destroyed his own engagement that makes women run in the other direction. Rachel had moved to a different city 3 months after everything imploded. She'd sent me a text before leaving. This got too messy. Good luck with everything. Like she was signing a work email. I'd thrown away a 4-year relationship, lost my family, destroyed my reputation, and wrecked my finances for someone who couldn't handle the consequences of our choices for more than a few months. My parents were getting divorced. Mom had hired a forensic accountant who'd uncovered 2 decades of hidden expenses, hotel rooms, gifts, trips that Dad had claimed were for work. The financial infidelity had been almost as extensive as the infidelity. Mom was taking him for everything he was worth. Aunt Maggie's marriage had also ended, though more quietly. She'd moved to Florida to live with her daughter, probably to escape the gossip and the looks from people who'd figured out what had been happening all those years. Dad was living in a 1-bedroom apartment across town, working as a substitute teacher because he'd quit his job rather than face the shame of everyone knowing what he'd done. We talked maybe once a month, 2 broken men comparing notes on how we destroyed our lives. Least you're young, he said during one of our pathetic phone calls. Can still recover from this, but recovery felt impossible. Not just because of the practical consequences, the money, the loneliness, the professional setbacks, but because of what I'd learned about. I wasn't who I thought I was. I'd a good person who'd made a bad choice. I was someone who'd systematically betrayed the person who trusted me most, someone who'd lied every single day for weeks, someone who'd brought another woman into the bed I shared with my fiancé. I was someone who'd chosen temporary pleasure over permanent love. I was someone who'd inherited the worst parts of my father and amplified them. The therapy I'd finally started helped me understand the chain of events, but understanding didn't equal forgiveness, not from others and not from. My therapist kept talking about self-compassion and making amends, but how to make amends for something like this, how to apologize for breaking someone's ability to trust. I wrote Sarah letters I never sent, dozens of them, trying to find words that could somehow undo what I'd done or at least explain it in a way that didn't make me sound like a monster. But every letter came out the same way, selfish. Even my apologies were about making feel better. A year after everything fell apart, I ran into Sarah's mom again, this time at the bank, both of us waiting in line. She saw me before I could pretend not to see her. She's engaged, she said without preamble. To a good man. Someone who knows how to treat her right, no trying to keep my face neutral. I'm happy for her. She studied my face, because looked miserable. I was profoundly, completely miserable. But that felt like the appropriate response to what I'd done. She's happy, Mrs. Chen continued. Happier than I ever saw her with, if I'm being honest. He sees her. Really sees her. Not like did toward the end. That because it was true. Somewhere along the way I'd stopped seeing Sarah as a person and started seeing her as an obligation. A box to check. Someone who was reliable and safe while I looked for excitement elsewhere. I know probably think loved her, Mrs. Chen said, her voice gentler than I deserved. But love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice. It's choosing someone every single day, even when it's boring, even when someone seems more exciting. She paused, letting that sink in. Stopped accusing her long before cheated. The cheating was just the final betrayal. She was right. I'd been emotionally gone for months before I physically cheated. I'd been taking Sarah for granted, treating her love like something that would tattle to rather than something precious I needed to earn every day. I hope learn from this, she said as her turn came. I hope become someone worthy of the love away. That was 18 months ago. I still live in the same apartment. I still work the same demoted position. I still spend most evenings alone wondering how I got here. But I've stopped waiting for things to go back to how they were before. There is no before. There's only the I have now, shaped by the choices I made, populated by the relationships I didn't destroy. I see couples sometimes at restaurants, walking down the street, laughing together in grocery stores, and I feel an ache so deep it's almost physical. Not because I want what they have exactly, because I remember having it and choosing to throw it away. I had someone who loved me unconditionally. Someone who would have walked through fire for me. Someone who was planning to promise, in front of everyone we knew, to love me for the rest of her. And I decided that wasn't enough. Last month Sarah's wedding announcement appeared in the local paper. The photo showed her in a simple white dress, beaming at a man who was looking at her like she was the most incredible thing he'd ever seen. She looked radiant. Genuinely, completely happy. The man she was marrying owned a veterinary clinic. They'd met when she brought a stray cat she'd found. The announcement mentioned their shared love of hiking and cooking, their plans to travel to Thailand for their honeymoon, his proposal during a sunset at the beach where she'd scattered her grandmother's ashes. He'd paid attention to what mattered to her. He'd learned her stories and honored them. I'd never asked about her grandmother's ashes. In 4 years together I'd never bothered to learn what the beach meant to her. I got the announcement and put it on my refrigerator, right next to my father's letter. 2 pieces of paper that told the whole story, what we destroyed, and what Sarah had built from the ruins. Sometimes I wonder if I'd stayed faithful, if I'd chosen Sarah Day the way Mrs. Chen talked about, whether we would have made it. Whether I would have learned to see her again, to appreciate what we had instead of taking it for granted. But that's not the timeline I'm living in. I'm living in the timeline where I spent 6 weeks someone who didn't love me instead of fighting for someone who did. I'm living in the timeline where I became exactly like my father, just stupider about hiding it. I'm living in the timeline where I proved that I was the kind of person who would choose excitement over a lifetime of love. Some mistakes recover from. Some mistakes teach lessons that make stronger, wiser, better. And some mistakes just teach who really are. I thought I was someone worth loving, someone capable of loyalty, someone who would never the people who mattered most. Turns out I was wrong about everything. Sarah found someone who chooses her every single day. Someone who sees her, appreciates her,